Did you know that you guys can now support me via one-time donations on Venmo? Well, of course you didn't know because I just created the Venmo account. Links in the description, as well as my Patreon, Subscribestar, and my PayPal. But let's get all that out of the way and start the video. What's up guys, Sean here, and today we're going to talk about the Democratic Socialists of America's convention and how amazing it was. But before we get started, I'm happy to report that my Detroit Debate Round 2 video, which had a fraudulent copyright claim against it, has been dropped. Thank you so much to everybody who shared that video, sent emails on my behalf, and got that claim dropped in under 24 hours after I posted my original video. I was really worried that it was going to take the full 30 days for that claim to be released, and then I was going to have to wait up to 3 months for the revenue associated with that video to be paid out to me. Also, one additional note, for those of you who not only didn't reach out on my behalf, which I totally understand not doing so, I assume that many of you have very busy lives, and you don't want to get involved, or you don't have the time to get involved in helping me secure my own personal income. Totally understand that, that's totally fair. This is not for those people. This message is for the people who for some reason thought it was greedy of me to point out that the fraudulent claim was made against my video, and for some reason took the odd position that I should have just let Rush Limbaugh's organization have the revenue from my video, even though it didn't contain one split second of video or audio from the Rush Limbaugh program. I don't understand why you guys took that position. I don't understand why you guys so angrily took that position. Again, not wanting to get involved, totally understand, but strange position to take. But moving on, let's get into the topic. So the Democratic Socialists of America recently held their 2019 convention, and they did us the great and fantastic honor of live streaming the convention so that the world can see the strange types of folks that show up to the Democratic Socialists of America's convention.
Don't talk to cops. By all means, don't talk to cops if there are cops there for any reason at all, right? And if you do see someone talking to cops, let the marshals know.
Now, the first thing you need to know about being a member of the DSA is to not talk to the police, not for any reason whatsoever. In fact, if you are caught talking to the police, you will be reported on to the local marshal, and they will then excise you from the cult for talking to the police because it's that serious. Now, you might be thinking, what if I got robbed? Should I go to the police and tell them I got robbed? Well, buddy, no, you're a part of the Democratic Socialists of America. The whole point of the DSA is to rob you. In fact, you should be excised for even asking that question because it presumes that you have a right to private property, and that is clearly not allowed in the DSA. So no talking to the police at all.
And additionally with the noise issue, like avoid hissing, avoid waving banners, right? Because there's all sorts of things. If you don't know what to do, show up these, right? I'm sure there's lots of ways that we can communicate to each other without needing to rely on something that's going to hurt somebody else.
Also, apparently this is a substitute for clapping, which is weird because I always thought the SJW substitute for clapping was snapping. But apparently snapping causes too much of a ruckus, so snapping will also get you excised from the DSA of America. And if the talking in the speech that you actually went to go to is too much for you to handle, they actually have quiet rooms, known as gulags, that you can go to if, in fact, you are triggered by the sound of anybody's voice.
We have quiet rooms that are available. There's a range of options of these, right? Please don't go in that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? We don't want to put people in stressful situations that they don't consent to, right?
And for those of you who are hearing impaired, the DSA has you covered because they in fact brought in a sign language interpreter so that those of you who cannot hear can get the entire speech via sign language. Well, that was the initial plan, but what happened is that the sign language interpreter was actually found to be offensive due to an objection under a point of personal privilege.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes. Because the blind could not see the signs being weaved. In fact, it was also offensive because people without hands couldn't do sign language, so they could only see the sign language, but they couldn't communicate back. And that created an unfair hierarchy. And because of that, they actually had to throw the sign language interpreter into the gulag, the quiet space, where he could no longer do damage to the rest of the conference. So obviously that was a joke about the sign language guy, but not really. Mark my words, that will in fact happen one day, and that clip will be glorious. But don't take the fact that that didn't happen to mean that the clips from this DSA convention were not in fact just as glorious.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Now, there are so many things about these DSA clips that I absolutely love. It's actually going to be hard for me to express them in this video. But I love the fact that during anybody's speech, any random person from the crowd can walk up to the microphone. Actually, scratch that. Saying walk up is very ableist of me. They could be in a wheelchair and roll up. Any random person can come up to the microphone and say, point of personal privilege, comrades. I have this minute, strange issue that may or may not be real, but I want to use this opportunity to adjust all of your behavior to accommodate me, and thus diminish what the conference is about. In this case, preventing people from talking because he has sensory overload issues.
I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload.
Prone to sensory overload? Who does this guy think he is? Spider-Man? Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, what? Spider-Man? That doesn't make any sense. But the reason that joke works is because in Captain America Civil War, it was revealed that this version of Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, wore goggles on his costume because after getting his spider powers, his senses got jacked up to around 11 or 14. I don't remember the exact number equivalent that Tom Holland gave in that movie. And this was the way that the MCU Spider-Man explained the spider sense.
It's just that when whatever happened, it's like my senses have been dialed to 11.
Now, I know that might be confusing for a lot of you because in the Tobey Maguire movies, the spider sense actually appeared to like slow down time, or at least speed up Tobey Maguire's perception of time so that he could react better. But I assure you, even though it's not correct and not true to the comics, and not true to the Tobey Maguire version, which was also not true to the comics, this is in fact how the spider sense works in the Civil War movie, which in my view is also an inaccurate depiction of the spider sense, which was really always more of a sixth sense to me, and honestly my favorite portrayal of the spider sense would have been the 90s cartoon where this thing just happened before there was danger. But now that I think about it, all that spider sense stuff took way too long for me to explain, and why am I explaining? This part is after the video. It's not like you guys are gonna rewind to that point in the video, hear that joke again fresh, and then with the context I'm adding now, know that that joke did in fact make sense. So going forward, I'm just going to say, who do you think you are? Daredevil? If it ever comes up again, that's what I'm going to say, and it should totally work.
Is there a speaker against name, chapter, pronouns?
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
So what's excellent about this clip is that this person was set off by the sensory overload person.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson.
Because the sensory overload person said, guys, can you keep the chatter down? I am a victim of sensory overload. And this person interpreted guys as gendered language, even though guys can refer to multiple genders. And what's great is that when the sensory overload person says guys, you can see the reaction of the next person coming up to speak instantly. They are instantly offended. That's how on edge everybody is at the DSA convention. They're all looking for a reason to get offended. They're all looking for a reason to stand up and say, point of personal privilege, comrades, stop talking the way you normally talk, because insert justification for why you have to cater to me. You see, what's great about this convention is it's like knocking down dominoes of oppression. Each person's oppression oppresses another person, thus they continuously interrupt the speeches and nothing ever gets done.
Quick point of privilege once again. Quick point of privilege once again. Hi, James Jackson, Sacramento DSA, he, him. I have already asked people to be mindful of the chatter of their comrades who are sensitive to sensory overload, and that goes double for the heckling and the hissing. It is also triggering to my anxiety. Like, the be comradely isn't just for like, let's keep things civil or whatever. It's so that people aren't going to get triggered and so that it doesn't affect their performance as a delegate, okay? Your need to express yourself is important, but your need to express yourself should not trump.
And look, here's sensory overload guy again being set off by the crowd. Apparently there is still way too much chit chat for this guy's liking. Who does this guy think he is? Spider-Man? Damn it. I was supposed to say Daredevil. I had this whole setup from before where I was going to say Daredevil. Because sensory overload. Not a lot of people understand the Spider-Man refers to the Tom Holland Spider-Man. You know what? I'm not getting into this. We're moving on. Next clip. Now, while everyone on the internet is laughing at these clips, because honestly, they are pretty funny, the fact that there's a large group of people who are so triggered by clapping that they have to do jazz hands, which, by the way, I just realized are cultural appropriation and horribly offensive in and of themselves. But while this might all seem like a joke and we're laughing because it's like, how do these people even function in society if they can't get anything done? There's actually a serious component to this. The DSA in this convention voted that they would in fact support Antifa. And the DSA is not a shrinking movement, it's a growing movement. In fact, the DSA has its own representatives in Congress. She may be under the Democratic Party label, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and she still holds true to the principles laid out in this convention. Bernie Sanders is the #2 candidate on the Democratic side, and he describes himself as a Democratic Socialist. Elizabeth Warren basically agrees with Bernie Sanders on everything, and although she doesn't call herself a Democratic Socialist, she is in line with the Democratic Socialists. The fact that they all seem inept and completely incapable of getting anything done shouldn't let us forget the fact that these are people that are gaining power in our society. Socialists by their nature are inept. That's why all their societies fail. The only thing socialists have ever been good at is taking power and then destroying the societies that they are in charge of. North Korea produces nothing. They are completely inept. Their GDP is 0. But they are also one of the most authoritarian nations on the entire planet because they are a communist dictatorship, and what socialists do is bring everybody down to the same level of poverty. So while it may be funny to mock these clips and mock how politically correct all these people are acting, you have to remember that we're much more politically correct as a society than we used to be, and there are steeper and steeper consequences for violating that PC orthodoxy. So this is what the future looks like if we continue to allow Democratic Socialists to retain and gain more power. The reason they want to control society is because they're inept. It's because they're incapable. It's because they can't produce anything. That's why they go after people who do produce. That's why they go after people who are capable. That's why they hate the United States of America. And they want to fundamentally take down all of the structures within it. So while we can all enjoy these clips and laugh at these dopes now, just remember, come January 2021, there will be more members of Congress sworn in that agree with them, and possibly a president that agrees with them. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. This has been me talking about the DSA. Till next time.